Welcome to another session. I hope you were well. Now, in today's session, I want to talk about the topic, the honest game. The honest game. And this is directed towards men, and I am holding men to account, but more importantly, calling on men to choose a path uh, that is more honourable in their interactions with women. Let me start as follows. Generally speaking, when addressing the conversational topic of relationships or intersexual dynamics, I do try to distinguish between dating and relationships. Most people conflate both concepts as synonymous. I don't. I understand that sometimes you start in one, dating, and you progress to the second, relationships. It's not unusual, however, to skip the first stage. And by that, what I mean is the whole idea and concept of dating is it's a relatively modern concept. Prior to the 1940s, we did not date. Most people, men and women, courted each other as virgins, chose each other, and went straight into marriage. As a result of the liberal philosophies and ideas that have come into the West and in other parts of the world, the whole concept of dating has become mainstream. A woman will want to date a man and go out and have sexual relations before marriage, sometimes having multiple partners. And a man will want to have sex before he commits, also having multiple sexual partners. That is a relatively new phenomenon. The whole idea of dating is not really something that is consistent with history and time and success. People were pure, they kept their chastity and purity, they made a choice with help and support from the community, and they proceeded down the path of a union. Dating and relationships are two separate sections with regards to intersexual dynamics. In any case, I am speaking in this regard, and in today's session, to relationships. I consider the gold standard to be marriage, and I want to ask men to take on the pathway of the honest game for a number of reasons. In the relationship marketplace, you have both men and women, but it's important to separate women into two groups. There are those who are wives, and we have the rest. By the rest, I'm referring to people who you have fun with and people who you play with. Wives are not difficult to distinguish and identify. A woman who is good enough and ready to be a wife, it's almost as though she has it written on her forehead, and you can spot them in advance and from a distance. There are some women who were raised and taught to be wives and to be mothers. There are some women who have learned that that is what they see as a calling. There's an inner longing. These are not women who want to ride the cock carousel. They're not looking to date and have multiple sexual partners. They believe in the union and the importance of having a significant, profound relationship. It's important for men to therefore separate women into two groups. And whenever you're dealing with the first group, wives, you treat them very delicately, and you treat them with respect, and you exercise the option to walk away if you cannot give them what they want. Now, the last sentence I just said will form the cornerstone of today's session. With regards to the other group, the rest of women, recognizing that for men, dating is synonymous with just having sex. The reason men go into the dating marketplace and the reason we play the game of dating is simply because we want to have our sexual needs satisfied. Men will say, do, attempt anything just to have the opportunity to ejaculate, to have their sexual desires satisfied. And women, unfortunately, do not understand the male sexual desire and how powerful it can be and how they should filter what they receive from men, both in terms of promises and words and presentations, to filter that through a prism that removes the dishonesty in the game of dating and relationships. Now, I have said in sessions that I have done before that dating and the initial process of dating is a very pretentious process. We put our best foot forward and we say whatever we have to be accepted. In the dating marketplace, women are gatekeepers. A woman decides who she gives her time to. She decides who she gives her intimacy to, who shares intimacy with. She decides who she gives her body to. And she decides in the act of sex if and who she chooses the gift of honor in bringing his seed into the next generation. Therefore, from a leverage of power basis, the woman controls the leverage of power in dating. The woman pays the highest penalty should things go wrong. She carries the highest burden. In other words, usually the sex that pays the highest price when dating goes wrong from a perspective of reproduction, in other words, getting pregnant, is the one who actually has the balance of power and therefore the one who should protect their power very carefully and their value. In relationships and marriage, men are gatekeepers because men pay the higher penalty when things go wrong. We are the ones who are left with the burden when things go wrong. We are the ones who lose half our net worth and even more when things go wrong. We are the ones, in the event of a children in the family, we only get at best, on average, 10% in terms of child custody. The woman gets 90%. So all of the liabilities and downsides are accrued to the man. And therefore we act as gatekeepers. We stand guard very carefully, making sure we choose the right partner. Because if we don't, we pay a heavy price. Now, having understood the concept of wives and other women in both the dating and relationship marketplace, I have seen, and perhaps this is an observation, I think most men would agree with this. I have seen women who are in the wife category being treated as though they're girlfriends or fun girls. And I would encourage you as a man, if you find that this is something that you are doing, and to seize such behavior and learn how to disconnect and let her go. Otherwise, you're simply like someone who catches a bird and puts it in a cage. You might feed the bird, you might give the bird water, you might create a lovely environment for the bird, but the bird isn't free because you're not giving the bird what the bird really wants. Women who want to be wives always know what they want. And unfortunately, when a woman gets begins a sexual interaction with a man, her initial core desire and need sometimes can be suppressed because she's hoping that she can win you over, sometimes to no avail. Most women do not have fathers or men in their lives critiquing and carefully helping them choose the potential suitors and men who are coming to them. So, as a rule of thumb, 3 to 6 months is to be the timeline for any relationship, whether that be dating or advancing towards relationship. As follows: you should not date someone for more than 3 to 6 months. Perhaps let me take a step back and qualify a few other things with regards to men. 18 to 35 is one group. 18 and below, let me start again. 18 and below is one group. 18 to 35 is another group. You might say 36 and over is the third group. I hold men who are in the third group more accountable because you've actually lived and you've come to a place where you know. 35 being the age of knowing, the age of enlightenment, all things remaining equal. 18 and below, you're still quite young, and therefore the whole idea of relationships should not be in the picture. You're way too young to be thinking about a union and marriage. As a matter of fact, you're also quite young with regards to dating because of the consequences of getting things wrong. In any case, the second group, between 18 and 35, I I can be sympathetic to those in that group, especially the younger they are, especially men who are below 30, because sometimes we do not know better. I recognize that I'm sharing what I have had to learn from my experiences. And obviously there are things over my lifetime that I would do differently. If you're 30 years or below, and also if you're 35 or below, it's important to understand that you have to choose what you're looking to achieve from the whole marketplace of men and women. If you're looking for fun, then you should make it very clear that you have a timeline. I think I might do a session where I talk about the importance of a timeline with regards to dating and relationships. If you set a timeline of 3 months or 3 to 6 months, it simply means that at the end of the period you recycle. If you're dating, that makes perfect sense, because you're not looking to draw someone into a false pretense that you care and you see them in your future. Both of you can have fun, but know when to walk away, because otherwise the woman starts to nest in what is a faulty foundation. You're not intending to build, but she's nesting in a foundation that is faulty, and when you leave, it all comes crumbling down. It would be the same as Samson holding up all the pillars. Initially, it may have felt safe. Unfortunately, when he put his hands down, everything came crumbling down. So it's important to understand that you play a role, and as a man, you should be a leader. Take responsibility. Take responsibility for the communication, for the conversation, for having honest dealings, and never be afraid to put your honest thoughts on the table. I think men tend to think that with regards to dating, that if they are honest, that the woman is less likely to say yes to sex. So a man will pretend to care more than he does to obtain sex, and then he makes the mistake of when he receives sex, he continues the pretense of caring more than he really does, because he wants the sex to continue. You see, the first, as they say, you fool me once, shame on me. You fool me twice, shame on you. In this particular instance, let's just assume both parties, it was a fair exchange. Sex has happened. It's happened multiple times. As a man, you should know when you recognize that the more you continue the relationship or the dating process, the more you start to make the person believe that there is something in the future. That this interaction could move beyond just intimacy and sex, and could morph into relationships and dedication, commitment, and marriage. My call to you today is to be a lot more responsible and to know when to put a time limit on a union or interaction. 3 to 6 months is a good guide. You should not be dating anyone for more than 6 months anyway, except it's a precondition to something serious. This is even more stressful for men who are 35 and above. I should rather say, I'll stress this even more for men who are 35 and above, because from 35 and above, except you're explicitly not looking to be married, you should only be dating women who are marriage-minded, women who want to get married. And when you meet women who are not sure, you should be very clear in your communication, in making them understand what you are looking for, and therefore the responsibility to end matters beyond 6 months is more paramount. I don't think as a man above 35, you should be dating any woman for more than 6 months, except it's a stepping stone and a trial marriage. You're effectively testing beyond 6 months to see whether both of you can come together in union. If that is the case, it shouldn't exceed any more than 3 months beyond 6 months, so you're looking at 9 months. Women should stop dating men for more than 6 months without a clear understanding about what the future is, his purpose is, his vision and mission is, without understanding his values. The whole concept of 2 years being used as a way of rationalizing poor behavior, especially with women, with regards to dating, has become the norm. People tend to think that you date someone for 2 years and it's not a long time. Let me preface that statement as follows. From 18 to 30, beauty generally for women lasts about 12 years. If you spend 2 years with someone, it simply means you've taken 2 years of your peak beauty and given to the person. 2 in 12 is the same as 1 in 6. 1 in 6 simply means that you've actually wasted 16.7%. Let's round it up to 20% of your peak beauty. Now, understand also that for most women, 18 to 35 is the key phase when, from a reproductive perspective, you have the most optimum possibility. 18 years. So, similarly, 2 in 18 translates to 1 in 9. That's 11%. You've taken 11% of your peak fertility years and wasted it on a relationship. And I have seen women do this regularly. You've dated 4 or 5 people. It lasts about 2 years on average. And then both of you come to a position where you walk away. You do 2 across 4 relationships, it's 8. It means you've taken 8 years out of your peak reproductive fertility years of 18 years and given it to someone. 8 in 18 is the same as 4 in 9, which is roughly almost 50% of your peak fertility years. 45 perhaps if you want to be more precise, wasted. But in terms of your beauty, 8 in 12 will be the same as 4 in 6. 60% of your peak beauty wasted on men who did not pay the highest honor and price to gift you and to commit to you as a woman. So the reason I'm stressing this for men particularly is because karma is a B. Believe in karma, I always have. And from a very young age, I think from about 18, I always made sure that when I met women who were looking for relationships and I was not serious or ready, I told them very early, usually from the first day. I told them, I always made it very clear, I'm not emotionally available. I'm not looking to be in a significant, profound, emotionally enriching relationship. I'm looking either for play, looking for fun, and looking for something short term. And many people walked away, and rightly so, especially the ones who were in category 1, wives, because they understood that I wasn't the right one for them. Some stayed in the pretense that perhaps they could convince me. Some who were in the wives category stayed, but after about 3 months I realized that no, these were bona fide wife materials, and I would walk away between 3 and 6 months, primarily because I understood that I did not want the karma. You see, honest communication and conversations, particularly having honest candor with women, is key. Not because of how they would perceive you, but because of karma. Things come around, and as you sow, you reap. I've always borne in mind that I wouldn't want someone treating my daughter in a manner that was not consistent with how I would want her to be treated. And you see, every woman you meet is someone's daughter. Every woman you meet is someone's, say, cousin, sister or brother. And if you humanize a woman and you humanize her needs and you try to play the role of father, even when you're dating, which is the recognition that whenever a woman comes under your authority, in whatever shape or form that comes in, you're responsible for protecting her, sometimes protecting her from herself. I've met women who will self-sabotage themselves because they do not know how to walk away. And it's up to you as a man to walk away and do the right thing. You see, I have also seen occasions where men would date women, and within 6 months, the woman will make it very clear that she is looking for something profound, a relationship. And she doesn't have the will or the strength to walk away. And she's hoping the man comes around. Bad strategy for women, by the way. She's hoping that he comes around in his, you might say, in his desire. Whereas the man understands that he will not come around. I have seen men take women for 2 years and 3 years and 4 years and 5 years, knowing fully well that they cannot give the woman what she wants. Sometimes it's marriage or union. Sometimes it's a family. I would say this to young men, whether you are below 30 or below 35 or above 30 or 35, it's important to recognize the importance of maintaining good character. If you have an abundance mindset, this should not be an issue. If you have a limited mindset, a scarcity mindset, you will find it challenging to let people go, because your presumption will be that you're going to lose out on the sex. Those who think like you are those who I call the zero-sum men. Men who will positive sum, have the integrity of having gone through the stages of conversation, intimacy, affection, and sex with a woman, look her in the eye and say, you're the right woman. I may be the right man, but this is the wrong time. I do not see myself being married or being in a committed relationship in the next 2 years. And therefore, I should let you go. And let me segue, because I think this is very important. At least you think that you can get away from just simply saying, I'm not ready. And if she stays, you claim, well, I told her I wasn't ready and she chose to stay. Some time ago, I had a loved one, and I remember the conversation vividly. Two people who were very close to me, who were dating, and they had been together for a long, long time. And they got to a point in their relationship where they both understood that the decision had to be made. Are we moving forward, or are we separating? She wanted to nest. She was in love. She'd been with him and given him a significant part of, let's just put it, her prime years. He wasn't ready. And he made it very clear, I'm not ready, I don't think I'm ready for this. But he did not have the honor in saying, I'm going to walk away, and I will stay away, because I know what you want and what you need, and I know I cannot give you what you want and you need. Let me draw something else into the conversation so far. A woman has a time clock on her with regards to certain important decisions. A woman is born with value. The value is given to her as you would someone actually winning a lottery. She takes that value and she can invest that value intelligently. Most women do not have men around them or a community of men to guide her in making the right decisions. So what women do is, when they take their value into the dating or the relationship marketplace, they trade and they give some of their value to men who are not deserving of them. They do that in the form of sex, intimacy, affection, or union with multiple men. Men, on the other hand, we are born with potential. We really have no value until we convert our potential to results. Women are sexual objects, so their sexual value really on the cards in the marketplace for dating, their main value. Doesn't mean a woman is not intelligent, ambitious, is not attractive. It simply means men are visual, so we tend to look firstly based on beauty, youth, beauty, chastity, purity, and the likes, before we get to know you. Men, on the other hand, we are resource objects. So we're judged based on our ability to provide, protect, profess our love, be the priest, and use our presence to demonstrate how much we care. But fundamentally, we are a resource object. A man has to convert his potential into something that is actual. And therefore, over time, our value increases. And as we age, we have more of what women generally want, all things remaining equal. But as women age, they have less of what men want: beauty, youth, chastity, purity, etc. So it is in a woman's interest to minimize who she gives herself to and how long she spends with such person, the younger she is. Whereas as a man, we come with nothing, just potential, and therefore we take. And the reason I've gone through all this elaboration is going back to the loved couple that I was referring to. The lady in question was approaching a period when geriatric pregnancy starts to become more serious. Geriatric pregnancy begins at 35, and she wasn't 35, but she was 32 going on 33. And the question was, in the next 2 years, could he see himself being married or having a family. And I remember having a conversation with both of them. And this might be of some value to most men because I think it's important, and also very important to most women. I asked her a question. I said, because I could see that she was still besotted in love with this young man. A great man, I have to say, really good man. And he had come to the place where he'd actually said, I don't actually see myself with you, starting a family with you. I'm not ready. She was so much in love that she said she would wait. So in the conversation I had with her, I asked a simple question. The question is one that I put forward to you. But it's not one I ask men to use, because women who really love and who want to nest tend to have a sense of hope, sometimes unfounded, and a poor strategy. Hope is never a strategy. I asked a simple question as follows. I said, let's fast forward 3 or 4 years. You've gone past 35. You're in high-risk pregnancy, and you discover through his communication directly to you that he has met someone else, and he's starting a family, and in fact, the girl in question is pregnant, and he is very much in love with her, and he's going forward to start a family with her. I said, would you have any resentment in your heart? And she thought about the question for a while, and she couldn't answer it. My response to her was as follows. That is your answer. I said, the reason you cannot answer is because there is something in you that recognizes that you would have some resentment. I said, had you said to me, no, I wouldn't have any resentment, I would just take it on the chin and say, well, at least he told me in advance, and he had done the honorable thing, but I chose to stay by my free will. And therefore, if he walks away later down the line, I shouldn't feel bad. I said, the reason you can't say in an affirmative position whether you would be upset or whether you would accept it is because something in you is saying, it's time to go. He has said, it's time to go, but he doesn't have the courage to push you away. You don't have the courage to walk away. My conversation today for men is, you have to have the courage and learn how to let good women go. This woman in question was a good woman, and any other man would have been lucky to have her. She's the right woman, and he is the right guy, but at the wrong time. I shared in many sessions ago that how it's important to understand that sometimes the relationships that work are often relationships where both parties meet at the right time, although one or two of the parties may not be the right person. In other words, you meet a man at 27 and he might be a great guy. For example, had you met me at 27, you may have said, well, I think he's a great guy. I wasn't ready. And I remember very happily telling many of my young friends at the time that I always knew that if I got married before 35, that I would be divorced within a year or two. I wasn't emotionally in the right place. I wasn't in the right frame. I hadn't actually achieved the level of success I was aspiring to get. But most importantly, I had not failed. My software was still at that, though a man, my software was still fleeting. The courage of my convictions wasn't well rooted. And so, but I had, this is a good point, I always had this calmer voice behind me saying, be careful, especially be careful with the good ones. And so whenever I met the good ones, I walked away. I always had an abundant mindset, and so I did not mind being alone. I did not define myself by having a woman around me. A lot of young men these days will not let good women go because you need the sex and you need her presence. Many of you, over a long time and over a lifetime, fall into difficult emotional traps. Not because you're not a good person, but primarily because the karma has come home to roost. You've messed around good women long enough, and unfortunately, when you meet the right person and you're ready, something happens. Karma brings back to you what you have sown, and you get to reap in many returns what you sown. There's also another part of men, generally speaking, who do not do this intentionally. There's something I call the lazy boy syndrome. And many of you, once you're dating someone and you're having sex, you're quite happy just to have that sex continue. You do not want an interruption. Sometimes even the sex is not great, it's not consistent, it's not given to you when you need it, sometimes even by barter. But in any case, you just like the idea that it's around. No guarantee you would have it, but it's around. So you become lazy. The idea of going back into the marketplace and sharpening your tools, learning how to be charismatic and interesting and funny and witty, and get back into the dating scene terrifies you because you become lazy. And rather than go back and fix your frame and fix your game, you hold on to the old woman, refusing to give her what she wants, refusing to let her go. In other words, punishing her and stealing her best and most important time, her youth, her beauty, her chastity. You hold on to that because you're too cowardly to get up, develop the discipline, go out into the marketplace and earn the opportunity to be in the dating marketplace. And I would say it's time to cut women loose who are good women if you are not willing to give the women what they want. I'll close as follows. If you humanize women, if you humanize people, and if you try as much as you can to put yourself in their moccasins or in their shoes, what you tend to find is that there's an angel on one side telling you, go ahead and do it. And there is an angel on the other side saying, don't do it. This will end badly in the long run. Those angels, I don't get to decide which is good or bad. You get to choose. But there's a conscience, a voice in you that tells you when something isn't right. In the West, especially in the West, there are very few good women. There are many women who've lost their way, partly because there aren't good fathers and good men around the community teaching them on how to deal with men. And unfortunately, the last group, they're women perhaps who should know better. If you want to date, avoid the women in the first group, the good women, because you're dating for a short period of time, and for you, dating is simply sex. As a matter of fact, men will sleep with anything, and therefore, whilst they prefer very attractive women, they will sleep with anything. However, women who were raised to be wives, women who have the mannerism, the decorum, the femininity of wives, should be left for wife opportunities, or for men who are ready to get married within 6 months or 9 months. To those in the middle group, you play a role. You're looking for sex, but a woman who comes into your presence is in your garden, and automatically the role of father becomes yours. The idea of telling a woman what's right and what is in her best interest, despite the advice being against your best interest, perhaps is the starting point of true masculinity, because in effect what you're simply saying is that my power should be used to protect, and I care about protecting your best interest and your long-term interest much more than I do about having my sexual desires met. You will find that with the women in the second group, if you're honest and you're straightforward and you tell them what is against their actions and in their best interest, they might disagree and choose to stay. My advice to you is beyond 6 months. It's time to walk, except you're pre-qualifying them for marriage. I have covered sessions where I make it clear that men should not live with women until they're within 6 months of marriage. And it shouldn't go for more than 6 months without the date being set and without the woman knowing for certain that she's walking down the aisle and she's going to be married to you. Generally speaking, most men in the dating marketplace should focus on what I call fun girls and play girls, those in the third category, because those women are adults, usually. They know what they want, and even if you tell them that you're only there just to have a great time, they accept it. Therefore, both parties have come and have what I call a value exchange equilibrium. Both parties understand what they're coming into the party looking for. I'll close as follows and say, as men, we have to play the honest game. Yes, the dating marketplace is fraught with different challenges. What I've found over the long term is if you think from an abundance mindset, and if you think with karma in mind, and if you think long term, there are decisions you can make where you walk away from opportunities that at the time may seem as though you're making the wrong decision. But over the long term, you find that your path is not obstructed by sins that you've committed to other people from the past. I hope today's session has been useful.